All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We're uncovering a hidden structural macroeconomic force that we're calling the silent wealth killer. It's this quiet current that might be eroding your hard-earned savings right under your nose. We spend so much time obsessing over which stocks to pick or trying to time the market perfectly, but we completely ignore the monetary system that sits underneath all those assets. So today, we're going to explore a phenomenon that impacts virtually every saver in a developing economy, yet somehow remains completely invisible.
Are you actually getting richer? Think about it. If your salary bumps up, the value of your property climbs, and your local portfolio is growing at a steady 7 or 8%, you naturally feel wealthier, right? It feels like you're doing everything exactly the way you're supposed to. But we really need to ask a brutally honest Socratic question here. Measured in what currency? Because if you're only tracking your progress in your local currency, you might be looking at a totally incomplete picture. You're basically trapped in a domestic benchmark.
The most dangerous wealth destruction is rarely sudden. This quote hits the nail right on the head for what we're talking about today. See, we all panic when the stock market flashes red on our phones, or when there's some dramatic, terrifying headline. But as humans, we are notoriously bad at noticing gradual deterioration. The most dangerous wealth destruction out there? It's slow. It's invisible. It's steady. It is the quiet, daily erosion of your global purchasing power over a span of decades. It's really a tale of two realities. On one hand, you have your local purchasing power, where everything seems totally fine. Your income is up, your property value is up, and things are compounding. But then there's global purchasing power. On the global stage, the most essential assets and commodities, think crude oil, semiconductors, AI infrastructure, international education, they are strictly priced in US dollars. The entire modern global financial system still heavily revolves around the dollar. Meaning, it is completely possible to appear wealthier locally while you are actually becoming much weaker globally. 54.3%. That is a staggering number to wrap your head around. It perfectly illustrates the brutal math of slow losses. The most expensive phrase in investing is probably, it's only a few percent. But a compounding 3% annual currency decline sustained over 20 years destroys nearly half of your original global purchasing power. You are left with just 54.3% of the global value you initially started with. And this doesn't happen through a sudden market panic or an economic collapse. It happens through the sheer, relentless persistence of structural decline.
Let's put this into perspective with a real-world example of an Indian saver. Back in 2010, 10 lakh rupees, which is 1 million rupees, bought roughly $22,000 of global value. Fast forward to 2026, and that exact same nominal amount of local wealth buys just under $12,000. The saver didn't lose a single dime locally, but globally, they became materially poorer. Now, you might be wondering, wait a second, how can my currency be working against me when our national economy is booming? It feels contradictory, doesn't it? You see rapid industrialization, world-class companies popping up left and right, and you naturally assume a fast-growing economy automatically equals a bulletproof currency. But in macroeconomics, especially when we're talking about emerging markets, that is a huge misconception. Huge economic growth actually does not guarantee currency strength.
The real answer lies deep in the structural core of the economy, in something known as the twin deficit. Think of the twin deficit like a household that constantly maxes out its credit cards while simultaneously buying way more stuff from the neighbors than it sells to them. A fiscal deficit means the government consistently spends more than it takes in. A current account deficit means the country imports more than it exports. Put them together, and you have continuous, mechanical pressure on the currency. And this pressure exists completely devoid of political ideology, it's just math. Here is where it gets crazy. Paradoxically, massive economic growth actually increases the country's need for imported energy and technology. That creates this relentless, structural demand for US dollars inside the physical economy. Every new factory that gets built, every crane you see in the skyline, every expanded logistics network, they all require oil, electronics, and heavy machinery. And guess what? Most of that is priced in dollars. So ironically, the faster the economy industrializes and grows, the more dollars it structurally demands every single day. So governments essentially face a binary choice when dealing with this inherited debt. Strategy A is honest repayment, which means severe austerity and slashing spending. Economically, it's painful, and politically, it's pretty much suicidal. No one wins an election promising austerity, so they almost always default to strategy B, controlled depreciation. They tolerate moderate inflation and a steadily weakening currency. It subtly inflates away the real burden of the domestic debt, and frankly, it's politically survivable. It's a highly predictable systemic choice. And there's another layer to this, a massive hidden beneficiary of a weaker currency, domestic exporters. Think about it. If your local currency suddenly spiked in value, vital industries like IT, pharma, and manufacturing would instantly become way too expensive on the global stage. Millions of jobs would literally be at risk. So, the export lobby practically relies on this slow, continued depreciation just to maintain their competitive edge globally.
Ultimately, the crucial takeaway here is that central banks aren't actually trying to create a permanently strong currency. They're simply trying to manage the volatility. They step in to make sure the depreciation is controlled and predictable rather than completely chaotic. They want to avoid a disorderly panic or institutional breakdown at all costs. But permanently reversing the structural decline? That's not the goal. Predictable decline is totally acceptable to them. Disorderly collapse is not.
Okay, so what does this all mean for you? And more importantly, how do we fix it? Let's transition into the wealth defense framework. We need to shift our mindset from just building nominal local wealth to fiercely protecting our global purchasing power.
Because honestly, understanding these macro forces is only half the battle. To actually shield your assets, we need a multi-layered approach. We're going to walk through 5 distinct layers of currency protection. This is the exact blueprint you can use to upgrade yourself from being just a local saver to becoming a globally protected investor. Layer 1 is US dollar bonds. This is your foundation. It's about taking a portion of your savings out of local fixed deposits and moving them directly into USD bonds. This gives you stability, yield, and absolute reserve currency protection. Honestly, this might be the most underappreciated asset class for everyday investors. By using something like US Treasury bond ETFs, you are literally picking your capital up out of a structurally weakening currency system, dropping it right into the global reserve currency, and earning a yield while you sleep.
Moving on to Layer 2, gold. But we aren't just looking at gold as a shiny commodity here. We're treating it as monetary insurance. Gold actually provides a fascinating multiplier effect when your local currency weakens. Here's how it works. When fiat currencies falter globally, gold goes up in dollar terms. But if your local currency is also sliding against the dollar, the local price of your gold surges even faster. It's double protection. Just keep in mind, gold doesn't pay a yield, so treat it as the insurance policy for your foundation, not the entire house.
Now, Layer 3 is where you take control of your personal cash flow. International income. This is an absolute game changer. You can actively alter your cash flow by earning income directly in stronger currencies, whether that's through global consulting, remote work, or freelancing internationally. If your daily living expenses stay in a depreciating local currency, but your paycheck is in US dollars or euros, you actively benefit from the depreciation. Suddenly watching your local currency drop on the evening news brings a little smile to your face instead of a groan.
Layer 4 is honestly brilliant because it's a built-in hedge. Global businesses. And the best part? You don't even need to open a complicated foreign brokerage account for this. By investing in strong local exporters, like major IT or pharma companies, their dollar-based revenues automatically become more valuable back home every single time your local currency drops. It completely flips the script, turning currency depreciation into a natural tailwind for their profits and giving you global exposure directly from your own domestic stock market.
And finally, Layer 5, geographic diversification, the whole shebang. True wealth protection means dismantling concentrated risk. If your primary job, your real estate, and your entire investment portfolio are all strictly tied to the exact same local currency, you are carrying massive invisible risk. Diversifying geographically breaks that fragile concentration. It ensures that your entire financial well-being isn't hanging on the monetary fate of just one single country.
I want to leave you with one final provocative question, something to help you rethink your entire financial picture. Are you simply picking the right assets, or are you actually trapped in the wrong benchmark? It is absolutely crucial to stop looking at wealth purely through a domestic lens. You've got to evaluate the current flowing underneath your financial boat, because at the end of the day, preserving your global purchasing power over the long haul, that might just be the most vital investment decision you will ever make.